dumb as you look.
When people talk about great heist movies, the usual titles come up: Heat, Ocean's 11, The Italian Job, maybe Rafifi. But before almost all of them, there was The Asphalt Jungle. Released in 1950 and directed by John Huston, this crime drama helped establish many of the rules that would define the heist genre for decades. It's a movie that feels surprisingly modern. It doesn't glorify criminals, but it doesn't demonize them either. Instead, it treats them as flawed human beings trapped by greed, desperation, bad decisions, and fate. Today I'm going to be breaking down everything that works about the Asphalt Jungle, everything that doesn't, and why this 70-plus-year-old film remains to be one of the most influential crime films ever made. The premise is deceptively simple. A recently released criminal mastermind named Doc Reidenschneider devises a jewel robbery. To put it off, he assembles a team of specialists, a safecracker, a getaway driver, muscle, and financial backing. If you've seen almost any heist film made after 1950, you've seen this setup before. What's remarkable is how fresh it feels here. Unlike modern crime films that spend an enormous amount of time creating twists and turns and surprises, The Asphalt Jungle focuses on process. The film is interested in showing how crime actually works. Planning, preparation, logistics, human error, consequences. The robbery itself isn't treated like an action spectacle. It's treated like a job. And that's what makes it so compelling. Every member of the crew has a role. Every step has a purpose. Every mistake has consequences. The movie understands something that many modern thrillers don't get. Watching competent people doing difficult tasks is inherently entertaining. John Huston was already an established filmmaker by 1950. He directed The Maltese Falcon and The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. But The Asphalt Jungle showcases many of his greatest strengths. The first thing that stands out is restraint. Huston never overdirects. He doesn't rely on flashy camera tricks. He doesn't force dramatic moments. He trusts the material. Many scenes simply play out in medium shots while actors carry the emotional weight. That sounds basic, but it's incredibly difficult to do effectively. The result is a movie that feels grounded, real, authentic. You don't feel like you're watching movie characters. You feel like you're watching people, even when those people happen to be criminals. One of the film's greatest achievements is the atmosphere. The city almost becomes a character. The streets feel dirty. The buildings feel worn down. The entire environment feels exhausted. This isn't the glamorous criminal underworld often seen in Hollywood productions of the era. It's a world of cheap apartments, back rooms, parking lots, small offices, people scraping by. The title itself is perfect. The Asphalt Jungle. The city is the jungle. Everyone is hunting something. Money, power, security, escape. Nobody is truly safe. And nobody gets exactly what they want. The sense of inevitable doom hangs over every scene. You know things are going to go wrong. You just don't know when. What really elevates the film is the characters. Every member of the criminal crew feels distinct, not just in terms of personality, but motivation. Everyone wants something different, and that's what creates the tragedy. Doc Reidenschneider, played brilliantly by Sam Jaffe. Doc is the mastermind. He's intelligent, patient, calculated, but he's also arrogant. He believes he's smarter than anyone around him. And for most of the movie, he's right. The irony is that his downfall doesn't come from a lack of intelligence. It comes from weakness, a very human weakness. He gets careless, and that single flaw destroys everything. It's a recurring theme throughout the movie. Nobody is undone by incompetence. They're undone by being human. Dix Handley, played by Sterling Hayden, Dix is arguably the emotional center of the film. He's tough, dangerous, capable, but underneath all that is a man obsessed with returning to a lost dream. He wants to go back to the countryside, back to a simpler life, back to something he believes he lost forever. Dix is fascinating because he's both sympathetic and self-destructive. You understand him completely, but you also recognize that many of his problems are self-inflicted. He's trapped by nostalgia, by an idealized version of the past, and that's ultimately what makes his ending so powerful. And Merrick, the lawyer financing the operation, is one of the movie's most interesting characters. On paper, he should be the respectable one. He's educated, wealthy, successful, yet he's arguably more corrupt than the criminals. The film repeatedly blurs the line between legitimate society and organized crime. The criminals may break laws, but the supposedly respectable citizens are often just as dishonest. It's a surprisingly cynical view of society for a Hollywood movie made in 1950. Let's talk about the robbery because it's fantastic, even by modern standards. The sequence is tense, not because of explosions or shootouts. It's tense because of uncertainty. Every member of the team knows exactly what they're doing, which means every problem feels significant. The safecracker works. The alarms are handled. The jewels are secured. Then one tiny mistake changes everything. That's one of the smartest aspects of the screenplay. The heist doesn't fail because the criminals are idiots. It fails because reality is unpredictable. The plan works. Life doesn't. That's a much more interesting idea. At its core, the Asphalt jungle really isn't about crime. It's about desire. Everyone wants something. Doc wants money and pleasure. Dix wants home. Emmerich wants status. Others want security. The movie argues that desire itself can become a trap. People become so focused on what they want that they stop seeing reality. And eventually, reality catches up. It's almost Shakespearean. Characters create their own downfall through flaws they can't overcome. Greed, pride, fantasy, desperation. The crime plot simply gives those themes structure. The ending remains to be one of the strongest conclusions in film noir history. Without spoiling every detail, the final scenes are heartbreaking because they're quiet. There isn't some giant climactic showdown. No epic final battle, just consequences. The ending feels inevitable, not because it's predictable, but because the movie carefully builds towards it. Every choice matters. Every mistake accumulates. Every dream becomes harder to reach. And when the story finally ends, it feels tragic in a deeply human way. One interesting aspect of the film is the appearance of Marilyn Monroe. Her role is relatively small, but it's historically significant because it helped bring attention to her talent and screen presence. Even with limited screen time, it's easy to see why audiences noticed her. She has undeniable charisma. However, if we're judging the movie strictly on its own merits, her role isn't especially important to the plot. It's more of a historical footnote than a major narrative element. Now, let's discuss what doesn't work as well. Because no movie is flawless, even great ones. Pacing. The biggest issue for modern audiences will likely be pacing. This is a deliberate movie, a patient movie. Some viewers accustomed to modern thrillers may find certain stretches slow. The film spends considerable time establishing characters and relationships before major developments occur. Personally, I think the patience pays off, but it may not work for everyone. Some supporting characters are underdeveloped. Several members of the ensemble don't receive the same depth as Dix or Doc. They're effective within the story, but compared to modern ensemble crime films, some characters feel more like archetypes than fully realized people. It's not a fatal flaw, just a limitation of the runtime and storytelling style. The female characters aren't as developed as the male leads. This was common in Hollywood at the time. Most women in the film function primarily in relation to the men's stories. There are moments of emotional depth, but compared to modern storytelling standards, the characterization can feel limited. Again, not unusual for 1950, but noticeable today. Lack of visual flash. Some viewers may find the cinematography less visually dynamic than later crime classics. Huston's restrained approach works for me, but audiences expecting highly stylized noir visuals may prefer films that push harder stylistically. The reason the Asphalt Jungle remains important isn't just because it's old, it's because it established a blueprint. You can see its DNA everywhere. Professional criminals, detailed planning, the team structure, the failed score, the human cost of crime. Countless films borrowed from this template. Yet, despite being copied for decades, the original still holds up remarkably well. That's usually the sign of a true classic. When the movie that inspired everyone else still feels fresh. So does the Asphalt Jungle deserve its reputation? Absolutely. It's a masterfully written crime drama with excellent performances, intelligent themes, and a heist sequence that remains gripping more than 70 years later. Its biggest weaknesses are mostly products of its era. The pacing may test some modern viewers. Certain supporting characters could be stronger, and the female roles aren't as developed as they could be. But those flaws are relatively minor compared to everything the film accomplishes. What works? Exceptional character writing, fantastic performances, strong themes, realistic depiction of crime, tense heist sequence, powerful ending, outstanding direction. What doesn't work as well? Slow pacing for some viewers, limited development for a few supporting characters, underwritten female roles, less visually flashy than some noir classics. Overall, The Asphalt Jungle is not just one of the greatest film noirs. It's one of the foundational crime films ever made. A movie that understands criminals better than most crime films. A movie that understands failure better than most tragedies. And a movie that proves that the most exciting stories isn't just about a plan succeeding. They're about what happens after it does. If you've never seen The Asphalt Jungle, I highly recommend checking it out. And if you have seen it, let me know where you rank it among the greatest noir films ever made. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.